Alright, so I'm here, I'm filleting crappie. I was making a video and of course somebody called me in the middle of my video. I've got 9 and 10 inch black crappie and white crappie here. You know, they're not the biggest slabs, but they've got some meat on them. You know, the keepers in Columbus, Ohio are 9 inches. But basically the first thing you want to do is you got to get the scales off of the fish. You know, you can't fillet this guy with the scales on. So you just take a knife, you know, I use this back edge here, and I go against, you know, tail to the front of the fish. You can see the scales, you know, flying off and coming off on the knife. I put down a drop cloth when I do this. Same drop cloth you would use if you were painting or something like that. I cover, you know, the whole kitchen because this stuff is all over the place if you don't. So, you know, I'll have to sweep the floor when I'm done, but this will catch all the stuff that's, you know, on my stove and counters. But basically, you get the scales off on both sides. It does not take a ton of time to do. Make sure that you get the scales from up here on the top as well. I don't think I missed very many. Okay, I'm going to wash them off real quick and get the scales out of my way. So here's how I fillet my fish, to each his own, but I have a Shakespeare fillet knife. I'm going to cut basically down the center of the fish. He comes to a point at the top here, which is where his backbone is. So you want to stay just above the backbone. You want to get as close as possible when you cut into him, but feel with your knife. You know, you can tell when you're cutting meat and you can tell when you're cutting bone. And you want to avoid cutting the bone because you'll end up with a bony, you know, a bony fillet. That's not what we want with a crappie. But you see, I split him just above the thin line in the backbone. And I split him all the way down to his tail. Same applies. Just feel those bones up against the side of your knife. That way you're getting as much meat as possible. And I went a little over, so I'm going to cut that little bit of bone out. But you cut them down there to the tail. I use the sharp tip of my knife to just kind of guide me. You can feel when you're cutting down, you know, you can feel the rib cage as you cut down here. That's as deep as you want to go. When you get to the side, the tail of the fish, see how I've skinned him back, you know, where I can just start a new line down here at the bottom. You want to get as close to the stomach as possible without cutting into it. This is not the meatiest fish, you know, so there's not a whole lot of meat right here. I know fishermen that would kill me for leaving the little bit of meat that I'm going to leave when I do this, but I don't want to cut into the stomach lining. So, but you just cut down along here. You can feel the rib cage. The rib cage guides you the whole way. And then now here, there is no meat that remains up here. You know, there's just a little sliver of meat. I mean, it's not that much. Again, these aren't the biggest crappie. I'm not concerned with that. So I'm just going to cut in here, and I'm going to use the rib cage to guide me to cut into the cut that I made earlier. Just a few swipes of the blade. It's a nice sharp fillet knife. And you can cut down here, you know, as close to the head as possible. And now I have a boneless crappie fillet. You know, you can feel in the meat whether or not there are any bones. You can't always feel that with some of the bigger fish, but you don't have to skin the crappie. Some people do. I don't skin mine. But that's it. That's all there is to it. Wash that fillet off and cook it. The other side, basically doing the same thing. Cutting in as close to the backbone as possible without going over into it. And I use my knife, just a few slits of the knife to separate the meat. I'm as close in on that tail as possible without cutting into the bone. And I'm using my knife to separate the meat. You know, I'm not going to cut into this stomach meat on this guy. I showed you on the other side, there's not a whole lot there. I'm not going to bother wasting my time. Again, some fishermen want every little bit of meat, which we all do, but, you know, again, it's not that big of a deal to me. This isn't a huge fish.